Good evening. If everyone could take their seats this evening, good evening and welcome to the regularly scheduled board meeting for the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, scheduled for Monday, October the 8th. We welcome all those that are in attendance this evening, those that are viewing at home and streaming, and some may be even viewing while they're on fall break at the beach, for all we know. We have a lot of guests here this evening. We've got some, just to talk about a few of the highlights on our agenda this evening. We'll have a resolution regarding forming the Health Sciences Academy. We have a resolution appropriating funds for the West Tennessee Veterans Home. We have third and final reading of a measure of zoning as well. So we welcome all the veterans that are here this evening, most specifically those from American Legion Post 250, located right here in Germantown, Tennessee. And I'd ask those gentlemen to come forward to the podium, and they will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening. Tonight, our invocation will be led by General Services Director Reynold Douglas. Please rise.
Please join me in a word of prayer. Gracious, eternal God, our Father, we come this evening thankful for what you do for us. Thank you for not giving us what we deserve. And Lord, we ask that you would bless the men and women of this country, veterans that are current and veterans that are no longer with us. We're thankful for being free will agents, and we're thankful for the veterans that you provide in this country to make sure that freedom is maintained. We ask that you be a part of this meeting this evening, that be a part of the decisions, the dialogue, the talk, that everything that is said and done here tonight would be to glorify you. In your name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Thank you, Post 250. We appreciate you leading us in the pledge this evening. Brings us to item 4 on the agenda, setting the agenda. The agenda was published and presented to the public, and this evening during executive session, the board elected to move some things around on the agenda. So let me make those announcements at this time. We have a particular agenda item known as special recognition. That's item 6. Tonight we'll have a proclamation for the National Friends of the Libraries Week. Item 6B will now be formerly item 14 on the agenda, resolution number 18R20, Health Sciences Academy. And item 6C will be formerly item 16, resolution number 18R22, amendment to resolution number 17R25, appropriating funds for the West Tennessee Veterans Home. All other items, we did have one other item, item 14, as I mentioned, item A on the consent agenda will now be item 14. That item is acceptance of the FEMA SAFER grant. So again, just to recap, item 6B, Health Sciences Academy, 6C, Veterans Home, item 14 and 16 are now B and C, and item 9A is now 14. So if you're scoring at home, I know that may be confusing, but as long as the clerk has it straight, we're okay. Clerk Betty, are you good? Thank you, Clerk. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as altered and modified?
Move to approve.
Second.
There's a motion by Alderman Yonda, a second by Alderman Barzizza. Please call the roll.
Alderman Barzizza?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Alderman Massey?
Yes.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
The agenda has been set for this evening. Brings us to item 5 on the agenda, approval of the minutes from the meeting held on September 24th of 2018. There were no modifications during executive session. Are there any at this particular time? Is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented to the public?
Move to approve.
There's a motion.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Alderman Massey?
Yes. Alderman Massey?
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
Alderman Barzizza?
Yes.
Alderman Barzizza?
Yes.
The minutes have been approved. That takes us to special recognition this evening. We have, as I mentioned earlier, 3 specific items on special recognition. The first is a proclamation for National Friends of Libraries Week. I think we have several staff members from the library. I know our librarian's here, chairman of our library board. If you could just stand and remain standing as I read the proclamation into the record, and then that way everyone can see who's a member of our library. And I think some of the friends are here as well. So if all those folks could just stand, and I'll read. Thank you, folks. National Friends of Libraries Week, whereas Friends of the Germantown Community Library raise money that enables our library to move from good to great, providing the resources for additional programming, much-needed equipment, support for children's summer reading, and special events throughout the year. And whereas the work of the Friends highlights the fact that our library is a cornerstone of the community, providing opportunities for all to engage in the joy of lifelong learning and connect with the thoughts and ideas of others from ages past to the present. And whereas the Friends understand the critical importance of well-funded libraries and advocate to ensure that our library gets the resources it needs to provide a wide variety of services to all ages, including access to print and electronic materials, along with expert assistance in research, readers advisory, and children's services. And whereas the Friends' gift of their time and commitment to the library sets an example for all in how volunteerism leads to positive civic engagement and the betterment of our community. And whereas 2018 has set a record for the most financial donations given by the Friends to the library. Now, therefore, I, Mike Palazzolo, Mayor of the City of Germantown, on behalf of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen and citizens of this great city, do declare October 21st through the 27th, 2018 as Friend of the Libraries Week, and we urge everyone to join the Friends of the Library for a week of celebration at the Germantown Community Library.
And Mayor, while you're making that presentation, I just have a few words serving as the liaison to the library board. Libraries are special, and one of the keys to our success at our community library, which has a monthly average circulation of approximately 30,000 items and up to 21,000 customer visits each month, is our amazing Friends group who loves books and who supports the programs and educational enrichment opportunities of the library through fundraising and volunteer service. President of the Friends Group, Don Riley, reminded me of their mission and that it was simple. They exist for the benefit of the Germantown Community Library. The Friends Bookstore sells gently used books with prices for books, audiobooks, movies, and CDs that range from 50 cents to $5. And that's important because I've got some numbers here in just a moment. The Friends Group promotes literacy throughout Germantown schools and the community and donate weekly to over 10 nonprofits approximately 60 boxes of books. Here are those important numbers. Through the bookstore, their monthly totals this year are approximately $5,669 per month, which is over 11,000 transactions at 50 cents per item. Annually, they donate, again, tens of thousands of books to various charities, prisons, and other nonprofit organizations, even some abroad. Membership has grown to over 740 members. So far in 2018, they've donated $31,000 plus, which is their highest amount so far, roughly twice what they've given in most of the previous years. And since 2016, the Friends of the Germantown Community Library has donated $229,114.80. We can applaud. That is indeed a job well done. This is a huge accomplishment, and we are so grateful for the leadership and the partnership, certainly with Daniel Page, our librarian, as well as Allison Bodkin, our bookstore manager, Mr. Cates, and Don Riley. Again, thank you for all that you do. Everyone who's actually manned a book drive. I know that we are grateful to them because, again, 11,000 transactions is not insignificant. And so we thank you for your passion, your unwavering support for a lifelong love of books and learning. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, did you want to have a remark or two? Tom Cates, Chairman of our Library Board since its inception.
Part of the success of the library from the first day that Germantown started running the library. We said our aim was to be the best library for a city of our size in Tennessee and expanding that to the U.S. as best we could. And we have had tremendous support from the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. They have funded us for all of the essentials that we need, but the $230,000 or $40,000 that Alderman Gibson mentions has given us the extras, the lanyap, the things that make our library so special. The people that work in the bookstore do it as a labor of love. We have one paid employee, and other than that, we staff it entirely with volunteers, many of whom are here tonight. And they are led by two people who are extremely extraordinary, Don Riley and Allison Bodkin. I say that you put those two people together with Don doing the planning and Allison doing the operations, they could run the space program. They are extremely exceptional people, and when I run across somebody like that, I think about, well, why are they so exceptional? And it reminds me of what my drill sergeant in the Army said about this fella who could shoot better than all of us, was faster and stronger, was smarter. And what he said was, you know, it's the same thing if he were here tonight, he'd say about Don and Allison. God just spent a little more time with those people.
Thank you, Mr. Cates. We appreciate that. Thank you to the Friends for all you do, and you make a lot of people in this community happy, my mom being one of them, so thank you. That takes us to item 6B on the agenda this evening, which was formerly item 14 on the agenda, resolution number 18R20, Health Sciences Academy. Mr. Lawton.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm glad Mr. Cates is here because I'm going to steal one of Tom's favorite sayings. Sometimes the stars just align and good things work out, much like when the city took over the operation of the library. There were a lot of good things in place. And I would say that same things that occurs here in the city of Germantown. We are in the 5th year of the existence of our amazing Germantown Municipal School District. Who'd have thought we'd be where we are in 2014 when we opened the doors. We also have the third component of this is this incredible regional medical center that exists in our city where you can get the best health care in the country within 5 minutes of any place where you live. And thirdly, you've got the other leg of this three-legged stool. You've got a very concerned and involved city administration and government who want to be partners not only with our health care but also with our school district as well. So what better partnership than these three bodies coming together to see what we can do to help advance health sciences within our community. Mr. Manuel, Ms. Landers are here. They are the instrumental in creating the Leadership Academy and the Performing Arts Center under the direction of Mayor Palazzolo and him working with both of these two individuals. The thought occurred, the concept, it grew organically. Well, we've got all these wonderful medical facilities, incredible school district, a supportive school city as well. Why don't we see if we can't form a health science academy at Houston High School? exactly why not? We've got all the players, we've got the tools, we've got the commitment. And so for the past several months, under the mayor's leadership and Mr. Manuel and Ms. Landers, there's been a group of individuals that have been meeting to talk about what does that look like? How do we get physicians and practicing doctors and physicians into classrooms? How do we take the best and brightest here, and these young ladies are sitting in the front row, they're a component of that and members of that, and perhaps Mayor, they can introduce themselves later. How do we get them more involved? We've got world-renowned scientists and doctors here. How can we expose them to the good things that happen within our community every day, and perhaps inspire them to do something more in terms of the medical community. So it's a fantastic marriage. It's a great relationship. We have a long way to go in terms of determining what that looks like, but you've got 3 willing partners who are willing and able to make this happen. So the resolution before the board this evening is simply to do that, is to recognize the cooperative efforts between all 3 of those organizations that I just mentioned. And I'll say one other thing. In the meetings that have been held, and particularly from the medical community, we know where the city is and we know where the school district is, but to hear the enthusiasm and the support and folks wanting to get involved for the medical community to share their knowledge, to share their experience with what they have to give back is truly amazing. And the folks involved in this run the ranks from St. Jude's to Campbell's to Baptist to all the others in between. They want to support this community and help these young people thrive and grow into the medical area. I won't read the resolution unless you want to or add further comments.
Oh, I'll add a few. Thank you, Mr. Lawton. And in a moment, we'll have representatives from the school district and from HOSHA as well come forward. This has been just a really, again, to kind of steal something from what Mr. Cates would say, when the stars align, has been very serendipitous over time. A few years ago, we started the CEO roundtable in our city, and we have about 30 or so CEOs of local businesses that are our largest employers. Mr. Manuel's on that particular council as well, because they employ well over 600 people at GMSD. But it turns out about 40% of that body is made up of healthcare. And so we built relationships over the last 3 or 4 years in our quarterly meetings and our quarterly luncheons, and we began to discuss this concept. We already have a very renowned Honors Academy at Houston High School. We have a very renowned Performing Arts Academy at Houston High School, a very renowned Leadership Academy. This would be the 4th leg of the table. Health Sciences, we know the term STEM, and STEM is an acronym for Science, Technology, Engineering, Math. This would be STEM exponentially to maybe the 10th power. And once we met with our partners over the summer, many were eager here in healthcare to participate and give you real-life experiences for our students. We have Campbell Clinic that's been around this region for 100 years and it's called Germantown Home since the early 90s. They're performing all kinds of surgeries there, and what better environment to be able to have our children be able to witness a surgery. They're all videotaped now with the proper disclosures and sign-offs. We could have their chief of staff be at one of our classes, explain what a degenerative hip looks like, why you replace it, how that procedure works, what's the rehab. We have Baptist Rehab as part of this partnership, so then they can take the baton and help our students learn about rehab after surgery. There's so many opportunities. We have one resident that has a company called Sequentia that is willing to donate several $100,000 in genetic testing equipment to our school district for labs that will become 21st century labs eventually. So I will not read the resolution into the record. I will say that there have been 30 different healthcare providers that participated in these meetings over the last 6 months. The 8 or 10 or so that are forming the Health Academy Advisory Network are I'll read them out loud to you, are Baptist Germantown Surgery Center, Campbell Clinic, Conrad Pearson Clinic, Sequentia, Gastro One, Methodist Le Bonheur Healthcare, Mid-South Imaging and Therapeutics, and one that we're very proud of. We have a relationship and a partnership now with St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, Stern Cardiovascular, Union University Germantown campus, and the West Clinic. I'd like to ask our superintendent and our chairman of the school board to come forward and maybe have some remarks and have your students with you. You don't have a partnership with the business community and the health community without having a partnership with our school district. The leadership of Chairman Landers and Superintendent Manuel have made this possible. where we just built relationships and figured out how to introduce people. They're doing the heavy lifting with curriculum and with, you know, whether there be internships or externships or the teaching of our faculty during the summer. And so I would turn the mic over to our chairman, Betsy Landers. Ms. Landers?
Thank you. As a self-professed science geek, this has been a very exciting journey for me. Our joint commitment to the establishment of a Health Sciences Academy at Houston High not only offers our students incredible opportunities moving forward, but it also signals GMSD's focus on how we will address preparing our students for the job market of the future. Over the summer months, as we met with representatives from the medical community, our excitement about the possibilities grew. GMSD's new challenge is moving beyond just meeting the compliance needs of the State Department of Education, and instead focusing our efforts on 21st century careers. We will need to prepare our students for future occupations in new fields related to rapidly changing technology. The addition of a Health Science Academy is an example of how we will address this challenge. Through these partnerships with Germantown's medical community, we will be able to provide our students with real-world opportunities to develop skills and abilities, the types of skills and abilities identified by medical professionals that will be needed for 21st century careers in the medical field. In May, I received an email from a parent about the excitement her family felt about GMSD and the opportunities it held for her children. I want to share with you just a bit. My daughter is completing her sophomore year at HHS. The variety of programming is amazing. She is interested in working in healthcare, so she is taking health sciences this school year. Student exposure to career and technical areas is immensely helpful in preparing them for life. This email came months before the beginning of our work in July, but it serves to highlight the importance of our student body, of what we are undertaking. Our teachers and staff at Houston High are excited about the possibilities that the inclusion of a Health Science Academy brings for our students. To name only a few of the opportunities: simulation labs, case studies to integrate real-life practices into classroom lectures, lab equipment donations, which the mayor mentioned. The list of possibilities is extensive, and it could eventually include the involvement at the elementary school level, offering our elementary students an early exposure to the importance of STEM education. On behalf of the board, I want to thank each of you for your support in this unique and forward-thinking endeavor that will have a long-term positive impact on our school system. To our medical community, thank you for your willingness to partner with us and help imagine new and exciting possibilities for our students. The Health Sciences Academy moves us closer to a national focus for our school district, but most importantly, it brings exceptional learning opportunities, resources, and experiences for our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Landers. Superintendent Manuel?
And I'll echo some of the sentiments that you stated. I think we talked about the creation of the district and what we could accomplish, what could make us district different from other school districts in the state. We've seen the rigor. We've seen the fact that we have 4 reward schools of our 5 schools. Our Houston High School, we've seen the ACT averages consistently rise. We've seen the number of students taking AP courses, and the scores in those AP courses dramatically increase over the past 5 years now. Now we're ready to take those next steps, and we talk about moving into the 21st century. We talk about exposing students to careers and technology that they're going to actually use once they leave our school setting. That is our next journey. And you look at the top high schools nationally, and that's what we strive to be. The difference is not just that high level of academic rigor, but it's the partnerships that they have in their communities. So whether you're talking about Thomas Jefferson High School outside of Virginia, where they actually have 25 different research labs that the students can go work in to prepare them for future occupations. Those are the types of steps that we have to take here in Germantown. The mayor has led us in putting the players at the table, putting us together with those businesses, those individuals who can really tell us what our students need. We have some of our students here tonight that are taking some of those courses, so if y'all can stand up and come up here. This is really about them. We have health sciences curriculum, but it's those next steps. It's putting those real individuals in the industry where they can come in, they can actually work with our students and talk about what they're going to experience. So if you'll come up and just tell us your name and the courses you're taking at Houston High School, and I'll ask one or two of you to tell us why you chose to take those. So come on up.
I'm Angela Joe. I am taking medical therapeutics and AP Government, AP Calc BC. Sorry. Those are just a few. Okay. Do you want all of them?
No, you don't have to follow them. Go on up.
Hello, I'm Asavri Shankar, and I'm taking AP Biology and AP Physics, and last year I took Health Sciences.
Hi, my name is Eden Ali. I'm currently taking Medical Therapeutics, Dual Enrollment, Anatomy and Physiology, and AP Calculus BC.
Hi, I'm Saksham Saxena. I'm taking Diagnostic Medicine, Chemistry, and AP Euro.
Hi, my name is Faith Perry, and I'm taking Health Science and Honors Geometry and Honors Biology.
If one or two of you will just tell us what made you decide to take the health science curriculum or the science curriculum. Does anybody want to say a few words? Go.
Well, I've always been interested in the healthcare field. I just want to get more experience in the healthcare experience. Like, I've learned more procedures and learned more about the careers in the healthcare field, and yeah, just learn more about healthcare in general.
When I was about 5 years old, somehow I decided I wanted to be a surgeon, and ever since then, I've been on the path and trying to just keep on it.
And just to let you know, this is just a sampling of the students that we have taking our health science curriculum. We had to deny over 100 students who wanted to take it as freshmen, and so they're having to wait to take it into their sophomore, junior year because it is such a desired course to take. And so know that we're excited about expanding that program and hiring additional teaching staff so that we can accommodate all students who have an interest in this. Thank you all. I know we're on our fall break right now. Thank you all for coming here tonight to tell us how this is important. And thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent, Chairman, and students. And young lady, in a couple of years, you're going to have someone that you can probably shadow in surgery as this Health Sciences Academy gets off the ground in the fall of 2019. Is there a motion to adopt Resolution 18R20, recognizing the cooperative efforts of the city, Germantown Municipal School District, and members of the local medical community to create an advisory network to establish a Health Sciences Academy at Houston High School? Second. Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just a comment, Mayor.
Sure.
And I actually would be remiss if I did not point out one of the exceptional teachers at Houston High, Dr. Abigail Simone, who leads many of these scholars. And thank you. Thank you for the work that you're putting in now. And we hope that you're going to take very good care of us soon.
Thank you. Well stated. Please call the roll.
Alderman Massey?
Yes.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
Alderman Barziza?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Resolution is adopted. The work begins for the next year and will be open, or you'll be open in the fall of 19. That brings us to item 6C on the agenda, which was formerly item number 16 on the agenda. Resolution number 18R22, amendment to resolution number 17R25, appropriating funds for the West Tennessee Veterans Home Project. Mr. Lawton.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the board. Included in this year's budget, the FY19 budget that was adopted July 1 of this year, the city appropriated $50,000 in the form of a match to go towards the construction of the West Tennessee Veterans Home. I'm pleased to announce this evening the partnership between the City of Germantown and Legion Post 250, that group has been able to raise the matching funds, the $50,000 to match the city's funds. Also give a lot of credit to Alderman Mary Ann Gibson, who worked very closely with with Legion Post 250 in helping to raise these dollars. With these funds in hand now, based on this resolution the board has in front of it, we will be able to transfer that $50,000 to the state of Tennessee to be used at a time when the federal government funds are in place and the other funds are in place to construct this veterans home. I'm looking at my friend Chris Schoenberger. We've been talking about this for a long time, many years with the mayor and the board. It's nice to see this come to fruition, and we are ready to move forward. And I'll turn it over to Ms. Gibson if she has any other comments.
Sure. Thank you, Patrick. Let's go ahead and get the motion on the table, and then I think, Vice Mayor, you'd like to make some remarks. Is there a motion to adopt Resolution 18R22, an amendment to Resolution 17R25, appropriating $50,000 for the construction of the West Tennessee Veterans Home and authorizing distribution of the budgeted grant funds?
Move to approve.
Motion and a second. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. As many of you already know this, and I feel like I am preaching to the choir with members of the West Tennessee Veterans Home nonprofit here, American Legion, Post 250. In the Tri-County area of Shelby, Fayette, and Tipton County, there are over 70,000 veterans, the largest concentration in the whole state. Approximately 3,000 to 5,000 of those live within our city. In November of 2017, the BMA unanimously passed a resolution to provide a matching grant of $50,000 to go toward the construction of the West Tennessee Veterans Home, which will ensure our veterans have access to the long-term care and rehabilitation services they've earned. We began this capital campaign back in January with the Project 100 initiative. We simply asked local businesses, civic organizations, friends and family of veterans, and the citizens of Germantown to contribute to this worthy cause. Our lofty goal was to raise $100 for every veteran in the area. To each of the members of that capital campaign, to every business and resident who contributed to this worthy cause, and I see some of our civic organizations represented here as well, we thank you. Your encouragement and advocacy were the keys to the success to make certain this project was followed through. I'm going to close with this because I do see several of our board members that may also want to speak. It's hard to describe what a privilege it is to be able to advocate for these men and women. They have given their all for our country. It's time to do more than just say thank you for our service. These veterans have lived a life of service, and we are grateful beyond words. And yes, it is time to build that facility. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Any other comments? I would like to recognize the Kiwanis Club of Germantown. I am a member as well, and they are here in attendance, the current president and past president. And it is a fact that the Kiwanis Club does so much for the community to put us over the top as it relates to just projects after projects for over 50 years in this community. Well, they put us over the top again this time. We were short a certain amount of money, and the Kiwanis Club stepped up and made sure that the community was whole, and so thank you, Kiwanis Club.
Mayor,
yes,
if I could,
go ahead.
there are just a couple of really key folks here. John Ivey, Ron Roberson, again, the commander of Post 250, the entire community, but these gentlemen specifically, they put on a car show. They brought folks not here locally, brought them in for that. It really did raise awareness for the entire project. And so again, thank you for doing that. I'm not sure that we could have been successful without those efforts of everyone involved.
Well, it takes a village, no doubt. Holly, did you want to come forward and have any remarks, or anyone else that participated if they'd like to have any remarks this evening?
I appreciate the opportunity to say thank you to Germantown. A big part of the Shelby County donation. In fact, in August, we made our first benchmark goal, which is pretty significant when you consider that we started actually working towards it in 2008. And in 2018, 10 years later, I might point out, we're there. And that money is at the state. and will allow us to get to priority one, which is, priority one is the place where we're going to be able to request federal matching funds. And that means that when we have all that money together, which is a lot, around $72 million, we will have a magnificent facility for our veterans, for all the veterans in this Tri-County area, because I'm telling you that Tipton, Shelby, and Fayette County, everybody contributed to this effort. Everybody did. And it's a significant number to know that of that, the $21.5 million or whatever it is that we actually sent to the state already, about $1 million of it, $1.5 million of it is individual contributions. And that I think is very significant. Some of them are bigger than others. Some people can afford more than others. So we have probably the highest donation in that group was maybe about $25,000. And the smallest was 2 $1 bills. And it is one of my favorite stories because the lady wrote in and sent that crumpled $2 bills in because she wanted to honor her brother who had passed away during World War II. You know, it just rips at your heart. It really does. But I personally want to thank you very much to the board of Germantown for leading this effort, for helping us to get up the side of the mountain and over the top. We're all of us eternally grateful. I just want to point out my guys over here, my henchman, Peasy Horton, who is from Germantown, but also one of the biggest donations from Germantown came in from Peasy. He did a wonderful job for all of us. Jim Thomason, Candy and Chris Schoenberger, Kevin Reardon, and of course everybody is familiar with who I am. I also want to ask, since this was a challenge, I want to provide for each of the aldermen and the members on the board a challenge coin, and in hopes that you will be there to meet the challenge again when the next home is being built, which will be in 4 or 5 years, that we'll be searching for money yet again. But I thank you very kindly for your generosity. It is just an honor to know all the people that were willing to give so much to make this actually happen. There are going to be an awful lot of happy sailors, Marines, Army folks, American Legion people. Everybody will be able to be served by this. And I thank you very much for your support.
Yeah. Holly, we're very thankful. I generally ask people to state their name for the record, but we all know you. And we appreciate your passion. I'm a professional fundraiser, and I will tell you this, that the grassroots part is oftentimes the most important part, and this particular capital campaign was led by you and the grassroots side of things. There's a specific amount of pride that I have for our community. Arlington committed $100,000, and the home will be in their city, and the city of Germantown, in essence, matched that, and we're one of the largest participants from a municipal standpoint. And I would be remiss, because she won't take much credit for it, but the person that stepped up to lead the city effort was our Vice Mayor, Mary Ann Gibson. So a round of applause for her. We have a motion on the floor. It's been properly moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
Alderman Barziza?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Alderman Massey?
Yes.
The motion is approved. We'll make that deposit as soon as we can. That concludes our special recognition. I would like to say this to everyone who's in attendance right now. If you would like to leave at this time, you may do so now, or you can stay for the conclusion of the meeting. So if you're part of the school district or with a veterans group or the Kiwanis Club or any of those other, or the Friends, this is your time. This is the hall pass time that you may leave. If not, you can stay and proverbially watch how the sausage is ground. As folks are beginning to move out of the chambers, we will return to in a moment to Alderman liaison reports. Alderman liaison reports move from position 1 through position 5, and I did not mention this earlier, but I did an executive session. Alderman Owens is out of town, and obviously it's pretty evident that his seat is empty. So that'll take us to Alderman liaison reports. Alderman Barzizza.
Thank you, Mayor. The Historic Commission met at the old Germantown Baptist Church, where we heard from builder and former Germantown Mayor Charles Savaggio talk about the remodeling of the 138-year-old structure. Charles went into detail about the condition of the building at the start of the rehab, and it took us through the entire story of not only construction, but how the fundraising efforts went within our community. A special thanks went out to the Methodist Hospital for their part in keeping the historic structure alive, and it's also available for rental, for those who don't know. The Economic Development Commission met on October the 4th. Items discussed were the grand opening of Trader Joe's, which was a major hit. Also discussed was the opening of Home Centric, excuse me. Can't read my own writing. And Rock and Rolls Sushi in the East Poplar District, and leasing out of the Orgel space in the Forest Hill Estates District. Chamber President Janie Day advised us that Night Rider, which was held just this past Saturday night, was held for the children, and it was quite a great time for them. I was there. The children had a wonderful time. Janie also mentioned that the Chamber is selling ads for the Chamber magazine. She mentioned that in February, the Chamber will have the Celebration of Excellence, recognizing the large, small, and nonprofit businesses of the area. Deadline to nominate these businesses in these 3 categories is October 31st, so contact Janie for details or if you have a nominee. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. The Neighborhood Preservation Commission will be hosting the Neighborhood Summit Tuesday, October 23rd at 5:30 at the Great Hall and Conference Center. This year, the theme will be, Will You Be My Neighbor? If you've ever wondered, how do I get involved in Germantown? Here's your chance to find out. Organizations from Kiwanis Club of Germantown, Rotary Club of Germantown, the Germantown Women's Club, Germantown Lions Club, and commissions such as Beautification, Environmental, and others will be on hand to share how you can get more involved. The summit begins with an opening reception with appetizers from several local restaurants. In addition, you can browse booths from neighborhood associations, city commissions, and other civic organizations of interest. Following the reception, keynote speakers including Germantown neighbor Dan Patterson, CopStop founder Joanna Young, and representatives from Volunteer Germantown will make presentations. Afterward, attendees will hear from representatives from area civic organizations and community volunteer groups on how to get more involved in our community. We'll conclude with an award ceremony honoring neighborhood leaders and associations for their accomplishments, and there will be plenty of folks. You'll know who's in charge because they will be in a red cardigan with lace-up tennis shoes. So just like our friend Mr. Rogers, who always challenged us to be a good neighbor. This will be, Will You Be a Neighbor? And Mayor, if I could, I know that Alderman Owens is away, but there were 2 things of note that I think that he would hope that we would talk about. One is Walk Across Tennessee. The City of Germantown welcomes anyone and everyone to join us in our Walk Across Tennessee. This healthy initiative is free and open to residents and non-residents. Each team captain will complete a form with 5 team members, and it's a way to get out and get active. And so there's information on our city's website, and you can just search for Walk Across Tennessee. And the other thing of note that happened at the Bobby Leonard Farm Park last night, the nonprofit held their first farm-to-table dinner featuring Chef Dave Krogh, who used vegetables straight from the garden. It was the perfect night. Our park's namesake, Mr. Bobby Lanier himself, was in attendance. The event was chaired by Linda Smith and raised advocacy and capital for the outdoor kitchen. Many thanks to those board members, Mark Schilke, Rich Ost, Melissa Kimbrough, and Sally Baker, and all the volunteers, along with Pam Beasley and her staff, for their hard work to make the event a success. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Alderman Massey.
The Germantown Police have partnered with the Drug Enforcement Administration and will be collecting unwanted prescription drugs between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. on Saturday, October 27th. So if you can, please bring your medications for disposal to one of the two locations sites. One is Kroger at 7735 Farmington Boulevard. That's the Kroger across from City Hall. Or the Walgreens at 9325 Poplar Avenue. That's at Poplar Avenue and Johnson Road. This service is free and anonymous, so no questions will be asked if you drop off your drugs. One note, the DEA cannot accept aerosol. That would include inhalers, liquids, or needles, or other sharp items. So only pills or patches can be accepted. That was my report from the Public Safety Education Commission. For the Environmental Commission, I just want to give everybody an update on Amnesty Dumpster and Recycle Day that we held on September 15th. It was sponsored by the Environmental Commission, Neighborhood Services. It was visited by almost 800 cars at two locations. The volume that was collected included 34 tons of junk debris, 5.5 tons of electronics, 6 tons of scrap metal, and 2 shredding trucks. Shredding is provided by Vital Record Control as a service to the community. In addition, the Habitat for Humanity Restore partnered with the name is Habitat for Humanity Restore, and they partnered with us for the first time, and they had 86 vehicles that had material that they and their staff could use. And I think that concludes my report. I do want to thank the members of the Environmental Commission for helping out with the Amnesty Dumpster Day, and for the Public Safety Education Commission members who will be helping with the drug take-back. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Yonda.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no report.
Thank you. And just a few items from my office. I want to congratulate and thank our fire department and Methodist Hospital for training about 450 students at Houston High in advanced CPR. I know that over the years we've done that at both Houston and Germantown High School, and people have had their lives saved because of that training. As well, staying in the fire department, I know our team has returned from the Carolinas, and our Swift Water Resource team had several evacuations and rescues. So if you could share our congratulations and recognition to that group. Bo Mills, I am amazed by the women of your department in the Public Works, the amount of volume that you produce. I'm tempted to read your entire activity from the weekly wrap-up last week, but it would be too lengthy. So please thank all your different crews, from water to utilities to sewer. They do great work, and they're the other guys and girls with uniforms on, so we thank you. From economic development, sales tax totals came in from September. We're 7% over budget, and 6%, that's for the month of September, and 6% year to date. Next month or the following month, we'll probably start to have some of the totals from Trader Joe's, so look out. We'll probably be in double-digit increases as well. And from our friends at MAR, the Memphis Area Association of Realtors, the monthly totals came out for home sales in the month of September. Average sales price in Germantown was up 11.5% over this period last year, and year to date, we're at 7.2% above as well. Our new home sales are also trending very nicely, and we're up almost 26% on new home sales with volume, and 11.4% on sales price alone. So economic vibrancy is alive and well in Germantown. That concludes Alderman liaison reports, and now we move to citizens to be heard. We have a few sheets this evening, Everyone who filled out a sheet, if you could begin to come forward or be ready to be called here in a moment, and I will read the guidelines for citizens to be heard. Citizens to be heard is designed to gain input from the public and not for immediate responses by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. The intent of this agenda item is to provide the public a platform to be thoughtfully heard and not a forum for dialogue, discussion, or verbal exchange with the board. While the board cannot assure each speaker of a specific or individualized future response, the board will consider the public comments and any supporting materials provided by the speaker. Public comments shall be limited to 3 minutes per resident. Speakers are asked to refrain from using names of personnel or names of persons connected with the city, particularly when lodging a complaint. Speakers will not be permitted to engage in gossip, hearsay, make defamatory comments, or use abusive or vulgar language. With that being said, everyone has signed their agreement and guidelines. The first speaker this evening will be Sarah Freeman. Ms. Freeman, if you could come forward, state your name and address for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to address the board.
Sarah Wilkerson Freeman, 7684 Appahon Lane. I rise to support removing the T4 zoning overlay from the Cordova Road Triangle and to reverting it zoning back to single-family residential only, which is the current underlying zoning. I appreciate the board's initiative on this removal. There are a few things stated by opponents of the removal that I would like to address that we heard a couple of weeks ago, those who want to keep the T4. One individual stated that the reason the property had not been developed over the last 11 years was that the family agreed not to develop it until after Daddy, Jack Owen, died. But some of us recall quite vividly in 2007 or 2008 when an entity representing Michael Bornay and Rusty Heineman submitted a sketch plan for a development on the triangle. It was reviewed by a work session, which I actually attended. The Planning Commission people were there, some staff, as well as some aldermen. A firestorm of resistance to the plan rose up out of the neighborhood nearby, and the plan was quashed. I submit that persistent and legitimate neighborhood concerns have been a key factor in the failure of the owners to develop that property. Another opponent of removing T4 stated the family had paid a great deal in assessed or estate taxes, and the rezoning would mean, quote, a total loss for them. Respectfully, I must point out that the family owns at least 30 prime lots for the development of single-family homes on the triangle. I spoke this last week with a young father in Hunter's Run, and he said that he and his wife had decided to place their children at Riverdale School rather than in private schools. He said that he would love to purchase a home on that property so his children could walk to school. The opponents represent one family. Those who live here in the neighborhood are more than 600 families. Collectively, we have far more to lose if this zoning error of 2007 stands. Furthermore, owning 30-plus residential lots in the Riverdale School District of Germantown, Tennessee is not something to cry or complain about. Removing the T4 zoning is in fact a win-win-win, especially considering the numbers you just stated, Mayor. The owners will still be enriched, the neighborhood will be protected, and the city will collect property taxes from stable and extraordinary neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker this evening will be Mr. Jim Jacobs. Mr. Jacobs, if you could come forward and state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to address the board.
Jim Jacobs, 7684 Apple Valley Road, 38138. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I truly appreciate it. I know I'm limited to 3 minutes. I hope you will indulge me if I go a little bit over.
We will not. Go ahead, continue.
It is my plan to speak to you tonight about how I am honored and privileged and grateful every day to be a resident of the city of Germantown, and how proud I am of how the city is run and how the city's business is conducted. And that is why I hope you will indulge me if I happen to go a few seconds over. You are familiar with me. I've spoken several times to this group. I first started attending Board of Mayor and Alderman meetings back when Norman Brown III proposed building 3 office buildings on the property north of River Oaks Presbyterian Church. And it has been a very interesting experience for me. It's been a wonderful lesson in civics. I wish that all city governments in this country ran as well and as efficiently as the city of Germantown does. My wife and I decided to move to Germantown in 1986, and I have never regretted it for a minute. We located just in back of River Oaks Presbyterian Church, which was an excellent location because our children could walk to Riverdale School. They could walk to the library, which was in the building, at the time was in the building, which is now the Economic and Community Development Center. And later they could walk to the new library. We could walk to some of the stores. The grocery store was within a short distance. City Hall was very convenient. I frequently walked to meetings here. I did not tonight because I wanted to be here for the executive session. I have probably walked past the Owens Triangle more than any other person in this room tonight, I suspect. But all of that aside, you would think that in my situation, liking the ease of convenient restaurants and facilities like this city government buildings and the library and access to the great operation that the city offers, that I would be very, very excited about smart growth. And initially I was. My topic that I put down tonight was the virtues of smart growth. I am excited about some of the aspects of the Thornwood development, not all of them. I'm disturbed by the loss of the landscape preservation area and a few other things, but I do like the idea of being able to walk to conveniently located restaurants, to have the new outdoor civic center that's going to be at the GPAC. But as smart growth was first being developed, there was something that made me very uneasy, and it didn't take long for me to realize what it was, and it was the Cordova Triangle, the Owens Triangle. That is a piece of property that never should have been in smart growth.
Please,
I am proud that this
conclude your remarks.
I am proud that this group has chosen to correct that mistake that was made back in 2007, 2008. And I really and truly look forward to this group cementing that situation tonight and making me feel good as well as my other neighbors and friends and residents about smart growth in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Jacobs. You got an extra minute and 5 seconds.
Sorry.
Mr. Capedia, please come forward and state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to address the board. We welcome you this evening. I think you're going to be bringing some news from your nonprofit, so please state your name and address for the record.
Name Anis Kapadia, address 2615 Forest Hill, Irene Road. I'm a resident of Germantown. My wife is teacher. My mother-in-law retired as a teacher. We do a lot of community work and a lot of charity. Today I'm here with my friend to invite the Germantown Alderman, Mayor, and the Friends of Germantown to the AKF Walk, which is scheduled for October 21st, H.W. Cox Park in Colleyville. I will let my friend, Mr. Ali Hasham, introduce and talk more about the charity.
Sure. Just state your name and address for the record.
Sure. Ali Hasham, 1775 Yancey Circle. So thanks, Anise. My name is Ali Hasham, and I want to thank each of you for your leadership here in Germantown. We're humbled to have the opportunity to address all of you, along with all the fellow residents of Germantown. Myself, Anise, and the rest of the team that are here are just a few of the millions of volunteers that are part of AKF that exist globally. And AKF is a leading, well-respected charity that focuses around poverty solutions around the globe. AKF partners with many large corporations along with governmental agencies such as the U.S. Department of State, Agriculture, and International Development. There is so much great work that this charity does, and I want to focus on 2 quick items around this. So one is being able to educate girls. The foundation believes in creating opportunities for girls and women. In the past decade, AKF and its partners in India have helped 1.2 million children learn to read and improve learning levels in 3,300 government schools. In the next 5 years, AKF plans to double that, educating 1.5 million new readers in 750 preschools and 4,000 schools. Water and sanitation. So AKF and partners have helped families obtain clean drinking water and sanitation, with more than 80,000 households gaining access to water. In 2015, AKF helped families construct over 10,000 toilets. Over the next 4 years, AKF agencies will help improve hygiene and sanitation in 6 Indian states to ensure access to safe toilets for 700,000 people. So some of the AKF events that we've held in the past have honored local police departments, fire departments, teachers, and well-respected veterans. This year, we're going to be taking the time to honor nurses, right, with a focus around the foundation's work on healthcare. Our local nurses will be recognized as heroes of our community by a special guest speaker. I want to formally invite all of you, along with all the residents in Germantown, for the AKF Walk on October 21st, which kicks off at 9:30 with a walk and run portion, and then the rest of the event actually starts at 11:30. We think this will serve as an excellent opportunity for everyone to learn more about the impact that this organization is having, including being able to see a very interactive Village in Action that shows the work as it's being showcased to be able to help other people across the globe. It's going to be a family event. There'll be a lot of activities for kids, and it's going to feature multicultural entertainment along with food. Most of all, you know, as being part of the volunteer team, it's going to allow us to be able to see other community members of Germantown, help us be able to engage in charities that are important to them, and to be able to deploy volunteers such as all of us to be able to help make an impact in the neighborhood as well. So we look forward to seeing all of you on October 21st at H.W. Cox Park in Collierville.
Thank you, gentlemen. And I received your information today. I'll share it with the board as well. And if you send me another email, I'll make sure we connect you with our GermantownVolunteer.com, and you may be able to get more volunteers from that as well. So thank you, and good luck with your 5K and all the work you do around the globe. We appreciate it. Our next speaker this evening will be Earl Williams. Mr. Williams, if you could come forward, state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to address the board.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Alderman, also. I live at 1691 Paddington Park Lane. Most of you are probably not familiar with that address, but it is part of Thornwood, one of the 5 phases of Thornwood. Thornwood is a mixed-use development. It has my residential neighborhood, Somerset, multifamily, hotel, and the last phase, which is undecided at this time. Some probably approve of the residential part and the retail part because of what it means to the city in terms of sales and property tax, but many are opposed to the multifamily part. What I think most people don't understand, and I'm in the real estate development business and a CPA, is that if you pull the multifamily piece out of that development, the entire development dies. It doesn't work. It would not have happened, and I would not live where I live today. I just don't think that people understand that it takes density and it takes a lot of money to do this development, and you have to have the right mix in order to make it work. When you look at the multifamily, it's going to be some of the highest rents in the city, and, well, matter of fact, make that the county, per square foot. You're going to have a very high income to qualify. When I talked to the developer this afternoon, he said that 90% of the signed leases have college, the residents have college degrees and 7-figure net worths. I think those are the type of people that any city would love to have. Most of the residents are likely to be professionals, individuals and couples looking to buy a residence, people who are looking to downsize and have retired or just don't want to maintain a home. I'll probably be there in a few years myself. What is interesting about this development is if you take a look at the property taxes and the sales taxes that are going to be developed from it when all 5 phases are complete and fully developed and fully assessed, it's going to make in full the bond payments for the new elementary school that is being built, for the improvements to Houston High School and the Riverdale School expansion. So if you think about it for a minute, you've got one development of 28 acres paying for an entire new city school. I don't know that you've got that happening very often in the city of Germantown. So as one who lives there, who walks to numerous retail shops and truthfully can't wait for all of them to open in the new development, I thank those of you that have supported smart growth. I thank you for the improvement of Thornwood, and I appreciate the fact that y'all have some great insights into what makes Germantown a great place to live. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Appreciate it. Next speaker, Tina Williams. You waiving your, okay. All right, good. Thank you. That concludes citizens to be heard for this evening. We thank all the residents that came forward to speak this evening. We appreciate you taking the time to speak to the board. That takes us to the consent agenda. I'll go through the consent agenda item by item in executive session, and this would be a good time. Some of you that would like to leave, I mean, you can stay for the entire meeting, but if you'd like to leave, this would be a good time as well. The consent agenda was thoroughly reviewed in our executive session at 5:30. And matter of fact, one of the items was pulled from the consent agenda and moved to the regular agenda. That was item 9A, which will be heard as item 14 this evening. Item 9B, contract Southern Avenue, electrical panel replacement phase 2. Item 9C, contract extension number 3, public safety uniforms. Item 9D, professional services agreement, Americans with Disability Act, ADA transition plan. Item 9E, purchase cooling tower replacement. Item 9F, purchase printing and mailing services. Item 9G, purchase vehicles. Item 9H, right-of-way acquisition, track 11, Forest Hill Irene Road improvements. Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda as modified?
Move to approve.
There's a motion. Second. There's a motion and a second by Alderman Barzizza. Please call the roll.
Alderman Barzizza?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Alderman Massey?
Yes.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
Consent agenda is approved as presented, as modified, that is. That takes us to the regular agenda this evening. Item 10, approval of warrants, Trevure, Phase 4. Mr. Ross.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. Item 10 tonight is 2 warrants for Trevure Phase 4. As part of the warrants approval process, they are deviations from the requirements of the SMART code and must be approved by both the Planning Commission and the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. On September 4th, 2018, the Planning Commission approved the revised and preliminary final site plan for a 35,592 square foot, 2-story retail office building with surface parking at Trevure. The development summary is on the screen as well as in your packet. It will include 2 stories, 104 spaces that are provided. 100 of those are available for regular, 4 are for handicap. The minimum requirement when you look at the 2 uses applied here, both office and retail, we're looking at 89 spaces. The maximum permitted is 172 spaces. And when you apply the SMART code sharing factor, only 73 spaces are provided, or required to be provided. The 2 warrants that are in front of you, and per section 23-745, any of these warrants, again, must be granted by approval of both the Planning Commission as well as the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. In determining justifiable reasons for granting a warrant, the Planning Commission as well as the BMA shall take into account, among other relevant factors that may be applicable, the relationship of the property to other properties, whether the deviation would be in accord with the intent of the SMART code, principles of good land use planning, the topography of the property, as well as any exceptional or practical difficulties or undue hardship on the owner of the property. In determining whether to grant a warrant, financial hardship shall not alone be considered sufficient to justify the deviation. And in all events, the Planning Commission as well as the BMA shall take into consideration whether the proposed deviation may be granted without significant detriment to the public good and without substantially impairing the intent and purpose of the SMART code provisions. Warrant number 1 is to relative to the service drives. On the northwest corner of the site, and warrant number 1 is covers 2 sections of the SMART code as it relates specifically to T5, 23792B2, vehicular entrance of parking lot or garage on lot frontage shall be no wider than 30 feet. However, when we think about this in terms of the code, there's another section, 23793A3, driveway widths. Vehicular entrances to parking lots, garages, parking structures shall be no wider than 24 feet at the frontage. The western driveway entrance into this site is approximately 52 feet wide. Why I cited both 793 and 792 is that these particular provisions are in conflict with one another. One says 30 feet, one says 24 feet. When you look at this particular entrance, you've got one entrance into the site, one entrance outside of the site. We are looking at this as a holistic curb cut, so 2 curb cuts that equal 52 feet. We are bringing forward a text amendment to fix the way that these 2 sections of the code don't communicate well with one another, so that it'll be free preview. All of it will be 30 feet so that it complies with the fire code, which requires 26 feet and requires a minimum of 24 feet. We want to make sure that we are in compliance with public safety. The second warrant in front of you tonight is for 3 proposed parking spaces that are a non-conforming size. The standard Germantown parking space should be 180 square feet, so either a 10 by 18 or a 9 by 20. The request in front of you tonight is for 160 square feet. There are 3 spaces located right here where the cursor is. Those spaces will be marked as compact car spaces only. They will be signed appropriately as well. There will be a what amounts to an architectural hip wall that's installed right there, so that the developer will be able to sign those spaces as compact car spaces only. So those are the 2 warrants that are part of the consideration in front of you tonight as part of Travier Phase 4 final revised site plan. Happy to answer any questions. Developer is also here as well.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Appreciate your presentation. Is there a motion to approve warrant 1 to approve a warrant from Section 23-792B-2, T5, and 23-793A3 to allow the vehicular driveway entrance to parking lots, garages, and parking structures to be wider than 30 feet at the frontage as required by the fire marshal?
Move to approve.
Second. So, motion by Alderman Yonda, seconded by the Vice Mayor. Any questions or discussion? Alderman Massey.
Mr. Ross, I guess my question would be, why didn't we do this on the front end? I know that there's conflicting sections, but it seems like this is something that if the fire department wanted this done, they would have done it on the front end.
I'm sorry, I'm not following you. What's the front end?
Well, before we got to the point today where we need warrants for this, I mean, why wasn't this something that was addressed in the code and in the plans as before today?
We've had this on our list of code amendments for a significant amount of time. We just are we plan to bring it as an individual text amendment moving forward. The Planning Commission heard it on Tuesday at their Planning Commission, but the request in front of you is for a 52-foot wide driveway. 30 feet or 24 feet wouldn't have accomplished this. It's a right in, right out. One could make a creative interpretation of the code, but we try not to do that. We'd like for the code to reflect the conditions that is being asked for. So they are asking for a warrant in order to do the right in, right out, and also meet the fire department's requirements for coming off of Poplar into this particular phase of their development.
Why wouldn't we take a look at the language in the amendment first before we vote on this warrant. It just seems to me like I would prefer to have the discussion, deliberate on the amendment itself rather than voting on the warrant.
Mr. Massey, this is not the first time you've seen this exact warrant. Take 5 made the exact same request for the same warrant. It's something, again, that's been on the text amendment, but the text amendment list for us to make improvements to the smart code, but development doesn't always move at the pace of text amendments. So this developer wanted to move forward with this warrant as well as the warrant for the smaller parking spaces. We are bringing forward a text amendment that'll have to go through a 3-reading process, and we are planning on fixing it. But the developer is ready to move forward with their project, and the warrant is part of their request in front of you tonight.
Any other questions or comments? Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Alderman Massey?
No.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
Alderman Barziza?
The warrant passes and carries. That brings us to the warrant motion 2. Is there a motion to approve a warrant from section 23-2 to allow 3 parking spaces to be smaller than 180 square feet as required by the zoning ordinance?
Move to approve.
It's a motion?
Second.
It's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Alderman Massey?
Yes.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
Alderman Barziza? Yes. Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Both warrants are approved and move forward. Brings us to agenda item number 11, development contract number 1227, Harvest Church parking lot expansion. Mr. Ross.
Thank you again, Mayor, members of the board. This agenda item is for project development contract 1227 for Harvest Church parking lot expansion. This project will include the construction of 130 additional spaces along with the revised location for a landscape buffer facing Winchester Road. As you know, Harvest Church is in the southwestern portion of Germantown, just adjacent to the corner of Winchester and Forest Hill Irene. This is the site under construction, current site layout. The area where the parking lot expansion is going to be approximately in this area. This is the currently approved site plan. They provided some drone footage as part of their initial application. Be happy to show that if the board would like to see it. But in an interest of time, this is the parking lot expanded area. They have gone to the Design Review Commission as well as the Board of Zoning Appeals and the Planning Commission as part of this process. They initially had to ask for an expansion of their non-conforming use. A church in a residential area is something that is a special request to the Board of Zoning Appeals. They will be installing a landscape buffer along with new landscape islands and also building up a retaining wall and adding some sidewalks so that folks can walk into the church building. Again, this is for 130 additional parking spaces. They had originally had 547, so that brings them up to a total of 677 out of 260 that are required for the number of seats that they have in their auditorium. But Harvest Church is experiencing significant growth and find this justifiable. So happy to answer any questions about this development contract.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Is there a motion to approve project development contract 1227 for Harvest Church parking lot expansion?
Move to approve. Second.
It's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
Alderman Barziza? Yes. Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Alderman Massey?
Yes.
Motion carries. We move to agenda item number 12, development contract number 512, Dogwood View Subdivision. Mr. Ross.
Thank you again. Development contract number 512 is for Dogwood View Subdivision. This is for the construction and development of 2 residential lots. The area for this development is at the end of Dogwood, north of Poplar, where it makes the turn. Just as a matter of history, this was originally considered in 1994 when the BMA at that time approved subdivision contract 364 to create 2 residential lots. They approved, again, contract 480 for the re-subdivision of Lot 2 and to create 2 more residential lots. However, that contract expired, and the final plat for the re-subdivision of Lot 2 was never recorded with the Shelby County Register's Office. Current property owner of that property, Mr. Steve Perotti, has reapplied to complete the re-subdivision of Lot 2, and on July 10th this year, the Planning Commission approved the preliminary and final plan for 2 residential lots with a minimum lot size of 33,271 square feet and lot width minimum of 82 feet. While it's tough to make out, this is Lot 1 and this is Lot 2. They are up against utility line. You notice that that's just been cleared. This is Poplar Avenue. This is Dogwood and Woodbridge coming around. But again, 2 lots would be in this general vicinity. This does look at Germantown Forward 2030 strategic objective of the city experiencing positive trends and assessed value of residential areas by continuing to create opportunities for new residential properties, as well as encouraging improvement to existing homes that result in higher home values, pride in ownership, new residents, and an increased value to both neighborhoods as well as the city of Germantown. Happy to answer any questions about this project.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Is there a motion to approve subdivision development contract 512 for Dogwood View subdivision and re-subdivision of Lot 2?
Move to approve.
Second.
It's a motion and a second. Any discussion or questions?
Yes.
Alderman?
My question is in regards to the nature or the topography of that area. When you get closer to Poplar, it's fairly low. Are they aware of that?
Very much aware. That's why they find themselves in this constrained portion of the lot. They can only build back about this far before they get into some floodplain areas. So in order to keep the houses out of that, they've moved everything forward. But they're working within the bulk requirements of the residential district.
Are they planning on any fill dirt to raise the property level up? And to your knowledge?
Not to my knowledge. I believe that they'll have them at the street. There aren't any sidewalks in that area at this time, so they're not going to add 2 sidewalks for 2 houses over there. But and they will be built up out of any flooding area as currently designed.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this item? Please call the roll.
Alderman Barziza?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Alderman Massey?
I am going to side with the 2 no votes on the Planning Commission for the same reasons that Ms. Hicks stated, and I'm going to vote no.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
Motion carries. Move to item 13 on the agenda. You get to take a break, Mr. Ross.
Thank you.
Item 13 on the agenda, Memorandum of Understanding, City of Germantown and Germantown Municipal School Board. Mr. Lawton.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the board. Tonight we've seen a great deal of coordination and cooperation between our friends with the Germantown Municipal School District and the City of Germantown, and agenda item number 13 is just another example of these 2 entities working together to create great things in our community, particularly for our school system. Under the background section of this agenda item, we've listed at least 5 different areas where the district, in working very closely with the city and identifying not only deferred maintenance activities, but brand new capital improvement areas, have worked together to try to solve these problems. It's Riverdale Addition, the construction or the under construction now of the new K through 5 elementary school, the dogwood roof, security camera upgrades, which is body incorporated into this year's budget, and new boilers at Riverdale, which will be funded partially in FY19 and the balance in FY20. That brings us to this next item that was incorporated in this year's budget, and that is the joint funding for the construction of a new field house at Houston High School, as well as upgrades to the auditorium at the high school. The city's portion of this, we have allocated in this year's budget, and when the board adopted the budget this year, you approved the annual installments of $200,000 in this fiscal year to go to support the city's contribution to the construction of the new field house. There are 4 players involved with this: the City of Germantown, the Germantown Municipal School District, the Houston High School Arts and Athletic Foundation, as well as 1 private donor to make this project happen. The memorandum of understanding before you this evening is between the City of Germantown and the school district, wherein the City of Germantown will agree under this memorandum to provide in $200,000 increments over the next 5 years our portion of the funding, which will be $1 million to go for the construction of the new field house. There'll be other resources that will be involved that will help with not only the rest of the construction of the field house, but also the auditorium and improvements. So before you is that memorandum of understanding. With approval or consideration and approval by the board this evening, see Ms. Landers and Mr. Manuel here. They are prepared, I believe, to take the same MOU to their board later this month for approval. If you have any question, myself or Ms. Landers or Mr. Manuel will be more than happy to try to answer those.
Thank you, Mr. Lawton. Is there a motion to authorize the mayor to execute on behalf of the city a memorandum of understanding with the Germantown Municipal School Board of Education for construction of a field house at Houston High School?
Move to approve.
Second.
Vice Mayor motion, seconded by Alderman Barzizza. Any questions or discussion? Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Alderman Massey?
Yes.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
Alderman Barzizza?
Yes.
Motion carries. Another historic undertaking between our partners, and also a true triple partnership, getting the community, or I guess a quadruple partnership, with 4 players in this. So we look forward to a groundbreaking sometime in the future. Brings us to item 14 on the agenda. Item 14 was moved to the special recognition portion, and we substituted item 9A, acceptance of FEMA SAFER grant. Chief Selberg.
Thank you, Mayor and Board. The purpose of this agenda item is to request authorization to accept a staffing for adequate fire and emergency response, otherwise known as SAFER grant, from FEMA in the maximum amount of $627,439. With support from City Administration, the Fire Department and Grant Coordinator Alexa Robinson successfully applied for this grant for 6 additional firefighters. This will provide 2 additional firefighters per shift. This will provide additional personnel to help cover the daily shift staffing of fire apparatus. This will allow more efficient staffing to cover scheduled and non-scheduled vacancies, reduce overtime usage, ease staffing challenges, including for the backup ambulances, provide additional response to structure fires, and help maintain the city's ISO 1 classification. The grant provides reimbursement of expenses to hire the 6 firefighters over a 3-year period. The grant will reimburse 75% of the salary and benefits for the 6 firefighters for the first 2 years and 35% for the 3rd year. This meets the Germantown Forward 2030 goals of recruiting, hiring, and maintaining a highly trained and professional workforce sufficient to meet the community needs, ensuring adequate staffing levels to meet community needs, and delivering services to customers in the most efficient manner possible while pursuing efficiencies in operations to achieve the best value of public funds. I'm available if you have any questions.
Thank you, Chief. Mr. Lawton?
Mayor and Board, just a comment and observation. When Chief Selberg and I were discussing his budget for this next year and looking out into the future, the chief was challenged with trying to pursue this grant, and I'm very grateful for him and his staff and our grant writer and going out and actually securing that, because with that now, we'll have those 6 additional firefighters. But I think this also speaks to the beauty behind the 5-year financial plan that we present. We would not be sitting here telling you that we could bring on additional firefighters this year and not know where the funds were coming from in FY20, not know where the fundings were coming from in FY21. That's the beauty of doing a 5-year financial plan, because we can plan and budget long-term and look forward. And we know absolutely that in 2021 when we have, or 2022 when we have the full absorption of these men and women who are going to be new to our city, that we've got the resources to support them, that we don't have to go out and look at additional property taxes to support them. We know what that 5-year period looks like. We plan for that, and we can bring them on with a great deal of certainty. And I would say that was probably one of the things that FEMA was looking at in terms of this grant opportunity and accepting the grant. Will you be able to bring them on in 3 years? And the question absolutely was yes. So thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Patrick. Is there a motion to request authorization to accept a Staffing for Adequate Fire and Emergency Response, the SAFER grant, from the Federal Emergency Management Agency in the maximum amount of $627,439? It's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Alderman?
Congratulations, by the way. I think this is great. Excellent work. So would we have been able to hire these new firefighters if we hadn't gotten this grant?
Not until we're able to get it into the budget. We've been discussing the timing of that, and this actually helps us do that actually earlier than we thought we'd be able to, so it brings them on board quicker.
So one of the things that I'm always concerned about with public safety is that our fire and police aren't comfortable coming to the board and asking us for the money that they need. So if we're not giving you the money that you need ever, I want you to call us, pick up the phone, and talk to us about it. Because if it's a situation where we don't have enough firefighters and we're having to rely on grants to fill those positions, it could be a problem. And I'm not saying that that's what happened, but if there's ever a problem like that in the future, I'd like to know about it.
I feel comfortable coming forward with issues and concerns to my boss, so
I thought you would.
He's quite aware of my issues.
But this board is very good to public safety, and I want to make sure that they're always properly funded.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Barzizza.
I just want to congratulate you, Chief. Absolutely well done. This grant, the $627,439 is huge, and adding these new firefighters and EMTs is going to be a tremendous asset to us as a community as a whole. Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Please call the roll.
Alderman Massey?
Yes.
Alderman Yonda? Yes. Alderman Barzizza?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
We're excited to bring 6 new firefighters online. We appreciate searching for Grant with Alexa. Also, with Deputy Chief Bright, we've added 3 officers this year, and then earlier in our agenda, we had an ADA partnership as well, which was all federal grant related as well. So good job looking for the dollars in other places besides our citizens' pockets. Now we move to item 15 on the agenda, resolution number 18R21, funding policy of the City of Germantown Defined Benefit Cash Balance Plan. Mr. Lawton.
Mayor, thank you, and members of the board. In 2013, the city's cash balance retirement plan was put in place with all new employees who were hired after July 1, 2013. The plan itself is considered a defined benefit plan, and based upon recent action of the state of Tennessee, particularly the Comptroller's Office and the Treasurer's Office, it is subject to the attached funding policy. We currently have a very similar funding policy in place that was prepared and drafted by Frank Carney. Mr. Carney is here this evening. He is the attorney for the city's pension plan and advises us on that, and OPEB as well. The funding policy before the board is something that this body needs to, I say needs to adopt. The board can do what it needs to or wants to, but if we're going to stay compliant with state law, the board needs to consider the adoption of this funding policy. Essentially what it does is it tells the state of Tennessee that under our cash balance retirement plan that there are various funding sources involved. One is the employee contribution of 5%. The other is the city's contribution of 5%. But just as important as all of that is, and to make sure that we have a retirement plan for our employees hired after July 1, 2013, that the amount necessary to guarantee a 5% rate of return is going to be there for our hard-working men and women in public works and fire and all of our other departments. And so therefore the state is requiring that we have this funding policy in place that says, City of Germantown, you will do an actuarial determined estimation of what the contribution needs to be, and that you will budget for that on an annual basis. And that's what we do. That budget number for the current fiscal year is in this year's budget. When we look at the budget next year, we will once again reach out to our actuary and determine, based upon market conditions, number of employees in the plan now, life expectancy, all those things that a good actuary does, determine what we need to contribute to make that plan whole in terms of meeting the guaranteed 5% rate of return. There are consequences associated with this, with the funding policy in place for the existing defined benefit plan and this one that was created in 2013. The state is in the position to actually withhold sales tax revenue if local governments are not funding their pension plan the way they should. Most cities, maybe not most, but a great deal of cities across the state of Tennessee participate in the state's retirement plan. That's not the case with the City of Germantown. We've had this plan since the late 80s, and it has expanded and grown. The last thing the state of Tennessee wants to have, because we are all creatures of the state, is if a government is not doing what it should be doing from a fiduciary standpoint, that the rest of the citizens of the state of Tennessee are left holding the bag in terms of filling that gap. And the other thing is, I think from a moral and an ethical standpoint, we owe it to our employees to make sure that we actually have a pension plan for them for when they retire. There is something there for them, whether it's under the old plan that was frozen in 2013 or this plan, the cash balance defined benefit plan that was approved July 1 of 2013. So that's the action in front of the board this evening. Mr. Frank Carney, I mentioned again, is our attorney who wrote the funding policy and advises the Retirement Plan Administrative Committee and the administration on all things related to the pension, particularly as it relates to things like this and various changes to the IRS rules and regulations. If there's anything I can't answer, Mr. Carney, I know absolutely can address those, and our other legal representatives as well.
Thank you, Mr. Lawton. Is there a motion to approve Resolution 18R21, a funding policy of the City of Germantown defined benefit cash balance plan?
Move to approve.
It's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Alderman?
Mr. Carney, I'd like to ask you a few questions. Thank you for being here. Of course, we do all want to make sure that the benefits plans are well funded. But one of the things that I talked about tonight is the need for aldermen to actually review those projections so we'll know exactly what our unfunded liabilities are going to be in the future, because I don't think any of us have talked about that in a public meeting. At some point in the future, I think it would be a good idea if you could come and give a presentation on that so not only the board could see, but also the people at home could see what those liabilities are going to be. Do you happen to recall last year what the board was asked to contribute? I'll call it a catch-up. I don't know what the term is in your world, but I want to say it was somewhere around $1 million that we had underfunded, so we were trying to catch up. Do you recall that number?
I don't recall that number. The wording may be a little different. Your plan provides for a certain funding, and that funding in this particular plan is based on a guaranteed 5% interest credit to the 5% that the employee puts in. So if the actuary, not me, but your actuary looks at that on an ongoing basis, on a long-term basis, and says, okay, what is the plan earning now versus what is promised on that 5%? And then that's the amount you contribute. So I'm not sure there was a catch-up. There would have been actually an amount that the actuary came and said, on a projected basis, your plan had not earned enough to make that 5%, and so you paid that as part of the guarantee of the 5%. Am I making sense?
Well,
so it's not really a catch-up, but but it's on a projected basis. So each year the actuary makes that determination, and he can give you the basis on which he makes that, and he does present that to the retirement board. But he could present that to you as well.
I think that'd be a great idea. I can't remember exactly when it was, but it seems like we had a similar circumstance where the state had dictated that we needed to provide a certain amount of funding. And as part of that process, I believe we increased the contribution. It wasn't something that we had budgeted for. It was something that we budgeted for maybe. Do you remember, Alderman Young?
Yes, I do. You're talking about the regular defined benefit plan. We had to adjust our percentage. We had an 8% projection in terms of our being able to get a return of 8%, but we had to move it down because we can only be 0.5% from what the state does. So that was a defined benefit plan. We ended up paying over $1 million. You're absolutely correct.
And that's a different plan than this plan.
Right. This plan is 5%.
Right.
Match and 5% guaranteed. So if we're making 8%, we're not going to have to give them any,
correct,
add anything to it. We'll just have to do the 5% that we say we're going to match with everybody. But you're absolutely right, but that was the other plan. And and some of those numbers are scary sometimes.
Yeah, I think they are scary, and whether it's that plan or this plan, I just think that we need to give the public some insight into what those liabilities are going to be going forward.
Right, and
Go ahead, please.
One of the reasons we got out of the defined benefit plan was because of the high cost of the defined benefit plan. There were cities going bankrupt with that plan. So that's why we went to the cash balance in 2013.
Mayor, if I could just clarify a couple things. Words are important. There's never been a point in time where the city has ever underfunded our pension plan.
Correct.
I want to make that perfectly clear. Alderman Massey, you mentioned underfunded. That has never happened in the city of Germantown. In terms of catch-up, there's never been a time where we've caught up. We look at the actuarial determined contribution, and whatever the market performance is and whatever is happening, in the market at that point during that year, we fund fully what our required contribution is. It's never been underfunded. And Alderman Young, just one point of clarification. These are both actually considered defined benefit plans. There is a formula that's in place for that. A lot of organizations have gone to 401ks and 457 plans where the burden is totally on the employee to make the best guess in terms of investments and where they want their dollars to go. That's not the case here in Germantown. When we created the cash balance defined benefit retirement plan, we wanted to make darn sure that when our folks who were hired after July 1 of 13, there was going to be a pension. There was going to be an amount that was set aside for them that they could look at and look forward to in retirement.
Well, Mayor, I think the only request that I would have of you going forward is that you instruct staff or ask staff to schedule a meeting and let it be a public meeting, whether we do it on the night of a BMA meeting or not, so that we can invite the public and the aldermen can attend too, and we can talk about the different plans and the aspects.
We'll be glad to have a work session.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Please call the roll.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
Alderman Barziza?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Alderman Massey?
Yes.
Motion carries. We move to item 16, which actually was moved to special recognition earlier this evening. That brings us to the last item on the agenda this evening, item 17, ordinance number 2018-10, rezoning of Cordova Triangle from T4 General Urban to R Single Family Residential, and an ordinance amendment to delete Cordova Triangle from the Central Business District Regulating Plan referred to in Section 23-756 and the zoning map in Section 23-824 of the Germantown Smart Code, third and final reading. Mr. Ross.
Thank you again, Mayor, members of the board. This is the third and final reading for the rezoning as well as text amendments related to the Cordova Triangle and the Central Business District Regulating Plan and zoning map. Cordova Triangle, as you know, is at the intersection of Neshoba, Germantown Road, and Cordova Road. This area was rezoned and included as part of the Central Business District Small Area Plan, Smart Growth Plan in 2007. Approvals were completed in September of 2007 by the Planning Commission and October of 2007 by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen to rezone this T4. This was, at the time, included, as part of the entire central business district, overall rezoning, so over 700 acres at that point. What we're talking about on third and final reading is an area just short of 23 acres, 22.9. The majority of the central business district, so that 700 acres, was commercial. However, the Cordova Triangle was zoned residential and included and still includes occupied single-family homes. At the meeting on July 10th, 2018, the Planning Commission did vote to recommend approval to change the zoning from T4 back to residential R at their meeting. So this is the zoning map that would be changed. This area would go from T4 to R, as noted in your packet. This area, as mentioned earlier, consists of 6 homes located on varying lot sizes within the 22.9 acres. They have remained single-family residential in their land use since the adoption of the SMART Code in 2007. As we've discussed, the Owen tract is heavily wooded and also includes a mature canopy of trees and vegetation. The adjoining residential neighborhoods, so Germantown Heights and the Neshoba North, have remained largely unchanged in their nature west of Germantown Road since 2007. However, when you consider the neighborhoods across Germantown Road to the east, and the development of that area includes Thornwood, Somerset, expansion at the Village, as well as the proposed Grove at GPAC. Thornwood, as you know, consists over 100,000 square feet of mixed-use retail, hotel, and residential. Somerset has 43 single-family homes that are zoned T3, and the Village has added 33 independent living units along with expansion to their memory care and assisted living facility over the last several years. As part of the Germantown Code, Section 2366, that section permits a change in zoning districts whenever the public necessity, convenience, general welfare, or good zoning practice justifies such action. The basis for this zone change could also include that the existing zoning is unwise, unjust, and erroneous, and that there was a mistake in the zoning or that there has been a change in the neighborhood. As a result of the public and private development across the street from Triangle that includes the higher density that we talked about earlier, the activity center has changed when you consider the context and character of the existing neighborhoods shown as part of this area. Across the road, the T4 uses are no longer wise community development for that area of Germantown, as well as trying to safely move people across Germantown Road with 50,000 cars a day and 7 lanes of traffic on that state highway. So in an interest of public necessity, convenience, general welfare, and good zoning practice, the city, through this third reading, seeks to return the area to its original R residential zoning. And in doing so, the property and surrounding neighborhoods will be protected from any impact that could be occasioned from development with the T4 uses on the Triangle. Tennessee courts have also established the following criteria to help determine what is considered to be a change in the neighborhood, and that is changes in population, both of the area proposed to be rezoned and the surrounding areas, the changes in road patterns or traffic, including traffic volumes, and also including the development of new roadways in the vicinity, the need for the rezoning based upon changes in whatever is classified as the neighborhood, and which may include changes in population, development trends, and the existing character of nearby property, and changes that have occurred in the character of nearby property. As well, finally, the effect of the requested zone change on adjoining or nearby property. This project does fulfill Germantown Forward 2030 strategic objective of the city experiencing positive trends and assessed values of residential areas. This is the regulating plan that is referred to in 23-756. Again, pending the outcome of tonight's vote, this area would be removed from the regulating plan and back to the zoning, and then this area 23-824, the zoning map would be changed to R rather than T4. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Is there a motion to approve on third and final reading ordinance 2018-10, the rezoning of the Cordova Triangle from T4 General Urban to R Single Family Residential, and an ordinance amendment to delete Cordova Triangle from the Central Business District Regulating Plan referred to in Section 23-756 and the zoning map in Section 23-824 of the Germantown Smart Code?
Move to approve.
It's a motion and a second by Vice Mayor Gibson. Before opening the floor to discussion, I would just like the public to know, and for the record, the board met this evening in legal session and met with our legal counsel at 5 o'clock to discuss pending litigation, and one was the pending litigation on this particular property. At this time, I'd like to ask our city attorney to make sure that you go over with the board that we're voting this evening on a rezoning request only, and to make sure the board is aware of their duties and responsibilities as such.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Ross did an excellent job in his presentation, but I think that it's important for the record to reflect that the first reading of this matter was back on August the 27th, and at that time there was, again, an extensive presentation on behalf of the rezoning of the Cordova Triangle and the ordinance amendments that are referred to in the motion and in the ordinance. In addition, on September the 24th, there was a second reading, again an extensive presentation, and at that time a public hearing. There were numerous members of the Germantown community who spoke that night and others that spoke that night, and again, extensive presentation. And then again tonight we've had, in the citizens to be heard portion, others, members of the community, speak in support of the proposed zoning change and amendment. In consideration of this rezoning and the ordinance amendment, what the board has been pointed to is the criteria that is set out in our ordinance at section 23-66. And I know Mr. Ross reads it every time we come before you. It is on the second page of your agenda packet. And as Mr. Lawton said earlier, words are important. So what I have advised the board to do is to look to the criteria that would support either approval of the zoning change or not in making your decision, and ask you to give reasoning in accordance with the criteria, whether you're in favor or against the proposed zoning change and ordinance amendments.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. And whether that was in first reading or second reading, if board members have already made that, there's no need to reaffirm that, I take it.
No, I'd be happy for y'all. Again, any court that might review this decision will look at the entire record, including all three nights where this was heard. But we're here, and I think this is the final vote, the most important vote, and I'd be happy for each of you to speak and give your reasoning for your vote for or against.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. As chairman of this body, I will let the board know that I will not tolerate political rhetoric as it relates to this particular item, and you need to stay germane to the subject matter. The floor is open for discussion. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Based on the advice of our attorney earlier in closed session, I will be very thoughtful with my words tonight. I made the proposal to remove the T4 overlay back on January 8th at our Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting, which would revert this land back to its previous R residential zoning. The mayor then directed staff to begin that process. In July, I came before the Planning Commission in support of the mayor's application to remove the T4 overlay and believe this is the right course of action, a new, old direction for the triangle to revert back to residential zoning. I've met with staff and neighbors in both Neshoba North and Germantown Heights, along with their Homeowners Association leadership, and thank you again for your dogged determination and passionate advocacy. In light of development in the area, I believe reverting the land back to single-family residential is the best course of action, and will be voting to approve.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Alderman Barzizza.
Thank you, Mayor. After meeting with several members of, or residents, I should say, of the area back months and months ago, and having seen how the area has changed dramatically, and there is a major issue with safety if one was trying to cross from the Triangle to Thornwood. So with the change of the area that's developed very greatly, I will be voting to move to zoning back to residential as well. I think it's very important for the safety of the people of our community. We're talking 7 lanes of traffic. I think there was some conversation about a crosswalk, but yeah, a crosswalk would cost untold hundreds of thousands of dollars and won't be used if it were there. So again, I would be voting for the change. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion? Alderman Massey.
So what is or what is not said tonight by each alderman will be used as the evidence for or against the rezoning if the owners of the Triangle follow through with their commitment to challenge our decision in court. Everything I plan to say tonight would have strengthened the justification for rezoning the Cordova Triangle to residential use and exposed who was responsible for making the mistake in 2007 and why. But before the meeting, the mayor warned me that he would gavel me down if I said anything he didn't want me to say. And I'm a little bit uncomfortable going into this tonight, quite frankly, Mayor, because I feel like you've attempted to influence what I'm going to say.
What is your point of order, Vice Mayor?
We need to stay germane to the topic.
That is pretty germane.
Continue, Alderman Massey. Please stay within the parameter of the motion that's on the table.
I want to be clear that the Cordova Triangle should be rezoned to residential and removed from the smart growth plan for the central business district. So I will vote yes tonight. City officials clearly deviated from the original smart growth plan that was represented to the public as the mayor and other city officials approved zoning amendments and warrants that allowed for greater density and replaced plans for condos and townhomes.
Alderman Massey, the interpretation of deviate is something that is not for discussion this evening. Smart code was smart code. Smart zone is smart zone. This is a zoning request this evening.
Mayor, I understand, and I'm explaining how the city deviated from the plan in 2007 and why that justifies the rezoning tonight. I'm not quite sure why you interrupted me. So
well,
I'm going to continue.
The deviation needs to stay on the topic.
This is very much on topic. If you'll let me read my next sentence, you might understand how it's germane and how it will lead to the justification for rezoning the Cordova Triangle to residential. City officials clearly deviated from the original smart growth plan that was represented to the public as the mayor and other city officials approved zoning amendments and warrants that allowed for greater density.
Which city officials do you speak of precisely?
Mayor, this isn't an argumentative event for us. If you want to speak when I'm done, that's fine. But please hold your comments until I've entered my comments into the record.
I want you to be germane to the topic at hand.
Mayor, please let me finish. And the plan allowed for greater density and replaced plans for condos and townhomes with dense standalone apartments. I'm having to go through and kind of ferret out what I can and can't say. That's a little bit difficult, quite frankly. I only wish city officials had admitted the mistakes of smart growth sooner and had acted to protect other neighborhoods from the detrimental impact of dense urbanization and new apartments that will be created by the city's smart growth plan. The unfortunate reality is that previous boards arbitrarily disregarded the protections of Germantown's traditional zoning and adopted the...
Point of order.
What is your point of order, Alderman Yonda?
It needs to stay on topic. It doesn't matter what those other things. We're trying to vote on this here and this time.
Your point of order is well taken. We are discussing the rezoning of the Cordova Triangle, not the history of the land use plan of the city of Germantown.
Mayor, one of the very reasons that you cited that is cited in the Planning Commission's minute is the fact that it was a bad decision to rezone the Cordova Triangle in 2007, and I'm explaining that.
Please stay on the rezoning topic for this evening, the rezoning of the Cordova Triangle.
That is the rezoning of the Cordova Triangle, Mayor.
Please continue.
Folks, do you see what's going on here tonight, really? The unfortunate reality is that previous boards arbitrarily disregarded the protections of Germantown's traditional zoning and adopted the utopian social engineering plan known as smart growth for the purpose of rezoning small areas of the city for the financial benefit of landowners.
I disagree with you 100,000%.
What is your
This is not social engineering.
What is your point of order?
Point of order is he's not germane to the topic again. We've got to get on the topic. There's nothing happening here. You need to stay on it.
He just disagrees with what I'm saying, not the fact that it's not germane.
Your political rhetoric is not useful this evening.
It's not useful for this.
We are discussing rezoning. Please conclude your comments or stick to the subject matter.
Mayor, this is directly related to the rezoning.
Please stay to the rezoning topic.
This is the rezoning topic.
Not your political thoughts and your rhetoric. It is not. Go ahead, continue. We're voting on the Cordova Triangle this evening.
They did this rezoning despite strong opposition from residents in the existing neighborhoods near the planned smart growth development, such as what it was planned for the Cordova Triangle. The mayor's own recent letter to the Planning Commission recognizes that the application of smart growth zoning to the Cordova Triangle in 2007 was controversial from the outset. And at the 2018 Planning Commission meeting, Chairman Mike Harless stated the mistake was made in 2007. That's what I was referencing earlier when I was interrupted. When city officials voted to rezone the Cordova Triangle and incorporate it in the smart growth plan for the Central Business District. During the same Planning Commission meeting in July, Sherry Hicks stated she was on the Planning Commission in 2007 and remembered thinking the Cordova Triangle probably shouldn't be included in the smart growth plan for the Central Business District. City officials knew smart growth was a bad plan for our existing neighborhoods from the beginning, yet they pushed forward with the plan to the detriment of many of our existing neighborhoods. City officials should be held accountable for that kind of disregard for the public. And I would remind the public that I'll skip the rest of that. For the current rezoning, the mayor is listed as the applicant, but the city of Germantown acted as the applicant when the original request was made to rezone the Cordova Triangle in 2007. I note that the city charter does not list the city of Germantown as an entity or individual who has the authority to request a zoning change, so I question whether the Cordova Triangle and other smart growth districts were ever legally rezoned per the city charter. The fact is, the Cordova Triangle never should have been rezoned for smart growth, and a number of things have changed since 2007 that only strengthen the justification for the rezoning of the triangle back to its residential use.
30 seconds.
Mayor, you've interrupted me so many times, I think I need to be given more time.
You have 30 seconds. Continue, please.
I'll reserve my comments until the next round then.
Any other questions or discussions on this particular item? Vice Mayor?
Just a comment, Mayor. We met with our attorney, who was as crystal clear, I thought, as he could be, about making certain that we were very thoughtful, very cautious with our words when we entered this room, for pending litigation and for future litigation. And so for the people of Neshoba North, the people of Germantown Heights have come to us. We have agreed as a body that moving forward with rezoning is the correct thing to do. The mayor in his application stated that this is the correct move forward. So I am concerned that a member of the body is in direct conflict, I believe, with what our attorney has guided us to do tonight.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Any other questions or comments?
I'll continue.
Alderman Massey.
The fact is the Cordova Triangle never should have been rezoned for smart growth, and a number of things have changed since 2007 that only strengthen the justification for rezoning the triangle back to its residential use. For example, when the original smart growth plan was presented to the public around 2007, the smart growth study provided for R3 zoning, which is two family dwellings. And it also provided for RT zoning, which is multifamily, but it was limited to 6 dwellings per acre, which was intended to limit the density of the developments. But in November 2014, the developer of Thornwood filed an application to develop approximately 300 apartments as part of a dense standalone apartment complex. The Owen tract constituted the northernmost section of what was known as the municipal block in the smart growth plan for the Central Business District. The property was zoned for low-density residential uses. Since 2007, land in some smart growth areas was rezoned to allow for more than double the density of apartments that were called for in the original smart growth plan. Furthermore, residents were led to believe that the Owen property east of Germantown Road would be developed as townhomes, patio homes, and condominiums. So everyone was surprised when the developer built a dense standalone apartment complex in Thornwood. The Thornwood apartments were in fact the deviation from the smart growth plan that was presented to the public in 2007. And the surveys from that time period show that the apartments were not what Germantown residents said they wanted. The 2007 Smart Growth Survey showed that 140 people responded that they wanted to see more single-family homes, townhomes, patio homes, condominiums, and senior living.
What is your point of
order?
order?
Point of order is this doesn't have anything to do with what we're voting on here. We're voting on this to go back to residential from T4. I don't need a history lesson on this. They gave us why the reasons they wanted us to do this. It's just not on topic.
Alderman Massey, please stay within the parameters. You're taking a lot of leeway with making many assumptions.
I'm not making assumptions. I mean, this is the facts of what happened.
Probably destroying.
Please continue. Stay on mark.
Only 5 people responded that they wanted more apartment homes, and at the time, residents were led to believe that apartments would be more like lofts above retail space in a new development.
Point of order. This is not talking
What
about
is your point
apartments.
of order?
The point of order is that this is talking about making this residential. We're not talking about making this apartments.
Correct.
Okay?
Please stay within the framework of the agenda item.
The public was told that for empty nesters, the reduced square footage of townhomes and condominiums would enable a high quality of life without the stress of managing a larger than necessary residence, and these options would provide great ownership alternatives for young families just starting out, allowing them to be involved in the community while still building a foundation for the future. That can be verified on page 19 of the Smart Growth Plan. The 2007 survey also revealed that 99% of respondents wanted to preserve or enhance the tree canopy. Yet after 2014, developers were allowed to cut down almost every tree in smart growth developments such as Thornwood and Trevure. The loss of the trees was a shocking change to the character of the neighborhoods and certainly a deviation from the plans presented to the public. The 2007 Smart Growth Plan also assured residents that the design schemes would respect the surrounding neighborhoods, and the public was led to believe the character of the surrounding neighborhoods would be preserved and protected, and that's why it's relevant. The city failed to preserve and protect the neighborhoods. It was a change in the character, which justifies the rezoning back to residential now. There's already been too many changes that were detrimental to the surrounding neighborhood. Once the smart growth developments took off in 2014, the promises to preserve the trees in our neighborhoods were broken, and the problems created by smart growth began to be exposed. In the years after smart growth was planned, the city also created our own school district and quickly realized we had a problem with overcrowding.
Point of order.
Alderman, we're on rezoning.
This is about rezoning. It's the reason to go to a lower density rezoning. The overcrowding is directly related to the reason for rezoning.
That's an assumption that you make. That has not been proven. Continue your comments. If I have to stop you again, I will conclude your time on the floor.
And try to keep giving any more ammunition to the opposition, please.
The overcrowding further exposed the problems with the continuing to move forward with the development of dense urban developments near our neighborhoods and schools. The Germantown road realignment also brought a lot of attention to smart growth. Consultants cited the road realignment as one of the most important recommendations for handling the increased traffic.
Your comments are concluded. You are saying you're not on task.
The fact that the road realignment was not done is directly relevant to this topic because we can no longer handle the traffic. It justifies going to a lower density. How do you not understand that?
The topic of the item this evening is the rezoning of the Cordova Triangle.
That's exactly what the road realignment pertains to.
Alderman, we
I'd
make...
like to call the question.
The question's on the floor right now. Your time on the floor has been concluded. Is there anyone else who would like
You're not going to
their time?
conclude my time, Mayor.
I'm the chairman of this body.
Well,
I have the ability to do so.
If you want to have Deputy Bright, or Chief Deputy Bright, remove me from the dais, then that's your right. But you are doing a disservice to the residents of Germantown by not allowing me to finish my last 3 paragraphs today.
Alderman,
is that what you want to do, Mayor?
No.
Do you want to have me dragged out of here, or do you want to allow me to finish? Because
No.
I'm going to finish.
Alderman,
I owe it to the people. I owe it to those people out in the audience tonight and the ones watching at home to finish my comments.
I guarantee you're about to ruin it.
Alderman,
Mayor, give me some leeway and let me finish.
No, Alderman, your comments are concluded. The fact is, the public also needs to know for the record that your interference and meddling in this court case by calling the opposing property owners legal.
So this is germane.
It is very germane. If you want to protect the people of the Cordova Triangle
Let
and
me
other
finish,
residents,
Mayor. Since you're going to go on these tangents that you're talking about, you're making things up, and creating problems that don't exist. The road realignment was a significant change from the original plan for dealing with the increased traffic from smart growth developments. In closing, a great number of our citizens believe smart growth in the Forward 2030 plan
Alderman, please conclude your comments.
led Germantown in the wrong direction.
Please conclude
as
your
our city
comments.
leaders place the pursuit of greater density and urbanization
Alderman.
over the will of the majority of Germantown residents. City officials failed
Alderman.
to focus on the purpose for which zoning was originally designed, which was for the protection of neighborhood quality. I hope in the future we will put Germantown residents first again and create zoning that will protect our existing neighborhoods. That concludes my remarks.
Well, Alderman, you are in a framework of a business meeting with a chair and colleagues, and your disregard for order is duly noted.
Well, when
would
you
anyone else
disregard
like
the will of the people,
would anyone
it's
else
noted.
like the floor? Alderman Yonda.
I'd just like to, golly, I can't believe this. You have given so much information out that possibly will cost us the lawsuit, but hey, be it as it may. I tell you, I don't feel good about this vote. The Owens family have been pioneers to our community for over 100 years. They're not developers, but they sell their land to developer. We have board members that do the same. They still have people that live here. They've been great stewards of our community, donating land for roads. I just feel like a compromise could have been made. I feel like that this could have been worked out better. I feel like we're being unfair with this costly change to them. Maybe it can be worked out later. I understand what everybody has said. This may be the right thing to do. I'm just not sure. I'm going to go with the majority, even if I vote no on this. I just feel like this is unfair for some reason. If I was in this same position, I'd be feeling pretty bad about what's going on, or pretty good after listening to Alderman Massey. But I'm sorry.
Point of order, Mayor.
What is your point of
I'm
order?
done. Sorry.
So
that was out of point.
So, Mayor, every time I spoke, you basically interrupted me and claimed
What is
that
your point
there
of
was
order?
a fear that I was somehow going to destroy the... Alderman Yonda just sat here for 5 minutes explaining that he feels that it's unfair, and no one interrupted him.
You
I
have
also,
the ability
you want to hear
ask for a
something
point
else?
of
I
order.
cleared mine with legal, because you can see it's been redacted. Something that I wanted to make sure I didn't make any mistakes.
Are your comments concluded?
I'm done.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Any other questions or comments for the board?
So
Please call the roll. Your time on the floor has concluded.
Alderman Barziza? Yes. Vice Mayor Gibson? Yes. Alderman Massey?
Yes.
Alderman Yonda?
I'm going to abstain.
The motion carries, and the Cordova Triangle reverts to its prior zoning to R. We thank everyone in attendance this evening. We are adjourned.